Welcome to the new Cyber Frontier, bringing you the latest news on the local Colorado economy and initiatives that focus on the development of cybersecurity economics. You don't have to be a computer or cybersecurity expert to get plugged in. Your host, Chris Gorog, brings it straightforward, asks the tough questions, and brings the cyber world to a level of understanding for everyone. Chris is personable and opens up with our guests on issues we all would like to see addressed. You can find us on the web at www.newcyberfrontier.com. Now join our host as he introduces the topic for today's New Cyber Frontier.
So welcome to today's episode of New Cyber Frontier. On with us today, we are going to be talking here local in the studio. We have a guest from El Paso County, Colorado, the county clerk and recorder, Chuck Broerman.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we definitely are interested in this because we hear so much about election security. We waited till after the election, everything was cleared up.
Sure.
But to have Chuck in to talk about this process, because so many people just want to know where, how do we dig into it? What is all involved? Is our election secure? And what types of precautions we're taking?
Sure.
So we're bringing in the top person to talk about that, at least for our local area here. And I think it'll be an awakening for a lot of people just to see how this process is done.
Well, thank you for having me. And it is an important thing because our democracy, our representative democracy, depends on the fact that we run elections and people can be confident of the results that we publicize, that is truly the dictate of the people, that their voice is heard. We are the amplifier, we are the megaphone for our citizens, and they want to be sure that their vote counted and that it was recorded accurately. And we live in a very fortunate place here in the United States and in the world, in Colorado, is that we have a very unique and advanced way of voting and ensuring that there's integrity in our process such that our citizens can be confident. Colorado leads the way for the nation in making it both easy to vote but hard to cheat. That's our mantra, is we want people to be enfranchised, to have their vote heard, but we want to do it in a way that we are safe and secure and that we're accurate in what we do.
Yeah, we want to dig into that a little bit. But first of all, we just want to know about you.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all people here. We met on another radio show, and it was just kind of rush. So what's your background? How did you get into politics? Do you enjoy what you do? What's your story?
Most certainly. I'm a little farm kid from Ohio. I lived in a small rural community.
Where at in the state of Ohio?
In the northwestern portion of the state, a small little community of St. Henry, Ohio, agricultural and manufacturing community. My uncles were dairy farmers. My dad worked in a factory. I grew up in the era of the Gemini, Apollo space missions, and I wanted to be an astronaut. So I knew that many of the astronauts...
And here you are.
Yeah, not anywhere near to being an astronaut. And it's not rocket science, but it does help to have a technical bent in doing this. But I wanted to be an astronaut, and I studied electronics, and it took me another path. I met my wife, and we decided to start a family, and I worked in the manufacturing and engineering sectors of a number of high-tech companies, AT&T, NCR, Symbios Logic, Hyundai, and the like. So I worked, a little over 20 years in that sector. And
is that what brought you to this area?
Yeah, it did. It brought me from Dayton, Ohio, near Dayton, Ohio, to Colorado Springs. The industry brought me here. And then, the industry migrated a lot to the Far East and decided we stay here. And one thing led to another, and I found myself in this sector. I mean, I was always very much outside of manufacturing and engineering, electronics, the technical pursuit. I always was a history buff. I loved politics. I began to help other people that were like-minded as far as political views, just volunteering. And, one day an opportunity popped up where I could marry what I do technically with my other passion, and that's why I'm here today.
So what's your favorite era in history?
Era in history, I think the founding of our country.
Really? I've always been big. The Civil War has been something I've followed. A lot of the battlefields around the South when I lived down there, and just big interest in between that and I guess that was a Civil War still, but the conflict after the Civil War that led to a lot of our Western outlaws,
Sure.
which were still just fighting the war.
Sure,
They were just like, hey, we're holding out. We're not quitting.
Some of the outlaws in the West did find their roots in the Civil War and migrated out here. You're right, as far as history, but I like the founding of our country, the Civil War, World War II.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, I'm a geek on that. So
Me too. Well, let's take a break and hear from our sponsors. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back with the rest of today's show right after these brief messages from our sponsors. Cyber Resilience Institute helps build strong cyber communities designed to prevent members from attack. Like building a neighborhood watch, it takes coordination and a sharing community to protect our identities and valuables in the virtual world. Typically, we hear that organizations know they need to do something to protect their cyber assets, but don't know where to begin. Let Cyber Resilience Institute help your community create an action plan. Cyber Resilience Institute will build your community or business marketplace so that it is designed to support a collective cyber defense. Contact them for more information at cyberresilienceinstitute.org.
All right, welcome back to New Cyber Frontier. We're talking with Chuck Broerman, the El Paso County Clerk and Recorder.
That's correct.
Which is an elected position. So we talked about your background. Somebody that's like myself that's kind of starting to take an interest in politics.
Sure.
Tell me about the path to getting started. How did that road travel?
Well, it started very small. Like came from volunteering for a candidate that I had an interest in, and candidates at the local level depend on volunteers. They don't depend on high-paid consultants and the like. It's about the grassroots effort, going door to door, going to town halls and meetings and stuff like that, and meeting people. So it just came from volunteering and helping people and doing good at that, and then making self available to other opportunities as they come along.
Yeah, and the first time you ran, was it just like, well, you know what, I've been doing this long enough, I'm going to try it myself?
I first ran for local, just to be a precinct committee person in my precinct. In Colorado, we have a caucus, and we elect precinct committee people that represents our local neighborhoods at conventions and assemblies. So it started first by, volunteering, helping people who are like-minded to being a leader in your neighborhood or precinct, to then at a higher level, the county party, state party, and then creating an opportunity here in El Paso County, being the clerk and recorder.
It sounds like just a progression path. Some people say, like I talked to the governor, he's like, I never thought I would do that. It just went out and boom, it happened, and wow.
Yeah, I never dreamed. Like I said, I dreamed to be an astronaut, not to be the clerk and recorder. So, definitely on opposite ends of the spectrum, probably.
Yeah. Well, anyway, the topic for today: election security.
Sure.
When we look at what is it that we have to consider to secure the elections, there are some primary pieces that we had talked about before the show.
There's three major portions. One is the physical security of how we lay out, design our ballot, the printing of the ballot, the creation of that ballot on equipment that has to be secured, the tabulation of that equipment. So you have the physical security of that, so that there's a chain of custody on that process and that everything is secured. You have now.
So it's almost like anti-counterfeiting in that realm, right?
It
so
is.
Nobody really sees how it's made until it's used?
It is. So, and then we have the cybersecurity side of things that is growing, and then what we're finding is the informational side, the public information, the communications of how we vote, how you can be sure of your results, dispelling any myths. There's a lot of stuff that's out there in social media, on YouTube, and in the media that you just have to work to get your story out front so that people have accurate information. So there's a physical side of elections, physical security, the cybersecurity, and the informational side to make sure everyone's confident that we are delivering the correct results.
Okay, so now if we had to break down the things you look at in each one of those, the physical.
Yep.
You had said, protecting the design, making sure nobody really sees it before the day of election.
Sure.
Or this year, so they have time to try to reproduce it. And chain of custody. What other kind of things? Physical distribution.
Sure.
What else type of
Sure. So, sometime in late August, we'll get from our Secretary of State the races that will be on the ballot. And it's called the Ballot Access portion of it. So candidates get access to the ballot either by collecting signatures in a petition process or going through their political party and being elected through the primary to the general election. You have the various issues that are before us. They can either come from a municipality, a special district, or other entities. So all that comes together, and the Secretary of State then will say, this is what the format or the makeup of the issues and the candidates will be on.
And how much time do you have?
We only have a short period of time, less than a week, to put that all together. So we rely on computer systems to lay out and generate that design. Our equipment is in a secure area, so we have 24/7 cameras. We have cipher locks. We have control access to these areas where
do you do your own printing?
We do our preliminary printing to test the ballot.
Gotcha.
And then we have a vendor that will do the massive generation of the ballot. We'll have over 400,000 ballots that will be sent out to our citizens. But our original testing of our equipment, we'll create maybe 5,000 or 10,000 ballots that will robustly test our equipment. It's called our logic and accuracy test. So we test the various permutations and combinations that people can vote through our machines, and we'll do that in a public way. We have what's called a public logic and accuracy, where members of the public and the political parties come in and ensure that the ballots, as they were marked, generated the test results that was indicated, and then they sign off on that, and then we put seals on our equipment.
And that's machines that they're doing with that.
Yes.
And this is a physical process. It's a computerized machine, but it's a physical process, right?
Yes. So we lay out the ballot design, and then we test that, and we do that in a public way to make sure that's correct, and then we lock down the programming for it and the physical access to all that equipment. We have a server that's hooked up to a computer, but we have an air gap. There's no way that anyone from the outside can get in. Our room is shielded.
And
it's a local
how many
network.
of these machines are there that you do this on and they get shipped out?
We have 10, and these machines produce the ballots, and then they do the tabulation of them, and they can do about 5,000 to 7,000 ballots an hour. And
so when you're getting them, people are voting. Then the ballots come into this location.
Yes.
Where this is all done at one location.
Yeah, and our machines are highly accurate. Our machines have been tested by the Federal Election Commission, and the test is that there won't be not more than one miscount vote per 500,000 tabulations. Our equipment, I'm happy to tell our citizens that when they went through the testing, they went 500,000 no errors, 1 million no errors. They kept on going, went to 2 million, went to 5 million, and they finally said, we have seen no errors demonstrated. We well exceeded the standards. So our equipment is both fast and extremely accurate.
Okay, so now we're heading into the cyber portion because physically you've tabulated them onto these machines.
Yep.
And now these numbers have to come together somehow.
Sure.
So talk about that portion.
Sure. So, like I said, our equipment is in a secure place where nobody can get access to it. It's limited. We have the air gap, and then once we go through election night, and as we're displaying results, we have, we don't have a connection to the outside. We use a encrypted thumb drive that we then use once and only once, that takes that result from that machine to an outside machine that then is interfaced with the Secretary of State's office, and that then displays the results for all to see. And then
in this one county, though,
and then they marry it up to the other 63 counties.
So this process is happening in all the 63 counties across the state.
Yep. across the state, and then on in a presidential election is happening in 50 states and the territorials in their own different way. Another thing that creates a secure environment is there are many election platforms and suppliers and methods. Each of the 50 states do something a little different.
That's interesting. Let's take a break,
Sure.
hear from our sponsors, and come back and talk about the various differences you see across different states.
We'll be right back with the rest of today's show right after these brief messages from our sponsors. Cyber Resilience Institute helps build strong cyber communities designed to prevent members from attack. Like building a neighborhood watch, it takes coordination and a sharing community to protect our identities and valuables in the virtual world. Typically, we hear that organizations know they need to do something to protect their cyber assets, but don't know where to begin. Let Cyber Resilience Institute help your community create an action plan. Cyber Resilience Institute will build your community or business marketplace so that it is designed to support a collective cyber defense. Contact them for more information at cyberresilienceinstitute.org.
All right, welcome back to New Cyber Frontier. We're talking today with Chuck Broerman, the El Paso County Clerk and Recorder, about elections and election security. And we just kind of got done talking about the physical process,
Right.
What's going on in each county, then the tabulation and that how you handle security, which is still a little bit, we'll say old school.
Yeah.
Sneaker net. They would.
Yeah,
call
yes,
it.
yes, it is sneaker net, but it is secure, and when we're taking those results on an encrypted thumb drive, we're doing that with representatives of the political parties and the candidates, so they see firsthand.
So there's two people like walking
Yep.
each drive.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep.
All right. So now when you say the different states do things differently, give us an idea of what that looks like on a presidential election in different areas and what you see from those differences.
Sure. Our founding fathers were very wise that they allowed each state to set the parameters and how they're going to conduct elections. So in Colorado, we're a vote by mail state, so we send ballots out to folks, and 96% of those people will return a ballot that we sent them, and we track that ballot going to you. You sign the back of that envelope with your signature when that envelope comes back with your ballot. Before we open and before we tabulate, we have a machine that's much similar to what's used in the banking industry to look at your signature on your check to verify it's you. We're verifying your signature to what we have on record.
That just hit me as you have everybody's signature on record.
We do.
And
we do, and we
explain the security behind protecting that.
And we do, and we have multiple signatures. So whether you've voted, and we have one signature when you've registered to vote, to the times that you went to the DMV and they asked you if you wanted to update your voter registration, to every time you vote. So we have a catalog of your signatures, and that is secured in the Secretary of State's database that we have access, and that is encrypted also. It has two-factor authentication, and our Secretary of State working with partners from Homeland Security and the FBI. Most of the clerks in the state of Colorado belong to EISAC or MSISAC. We belong to those things. We're working with a lot of partners to ensure that database is secure and protected around the clock, so somebody can't come in and alter that or make changes in that. We had an event late last year. It was called the Epic event, and it was the first cybersecurity election event ever. So it's like, when you see mock disasters, when where fire departments and first responders will mock up a car accident or train accident or airline accident and go through what we would do, kind of test what we would do. We did something very similar to that in a cybersecurity realm of testing, having intrusions, being hacked, and then we found out from that. So while sharpening our craft, this was the first time that's been done ever in the United States and probably the world. So we're exercising that muscle. That it's just not what we do on election day. That we're honing our craft. And it's also where we found the other portion of what's important is not just the physical security and the chain of custody on a ballot, the cybersecurity side, but it's often for foreign actors or people that mean us ill to use misinformation that can be just as powerful and a lot cheaper to do than an actual physical hack. So putting information saying the elections have been hacked can disrupt people's confidence in the process just as much as...
I think we saw that a lot during the last presidential election, where I'm not sure I heard anybody legitimately prove that there was election tampering or whatever, but sure, the rumors were rampant, and that's all we needed, right?
Sure. And so we're finding out that it's important for election departments to have a public information officer and be able to get information out there, get ahead of that before people think something untoward has happened. So
that's interesting. Explain that person's role and what types of things they would be doing.
Well, I mean, that person's role is from, on our website and frequently asked questions to having a pulse on social media. We have social media platforms in our office that we're communicating. We're putting out YouTubes. We're using Twitter. We're using all those things. But they're also keeping a thumb on that, a finger on that to see what's coming back. I'll get emails from folks that will say, hey, I heard this, or hey, I saw this YouTube thing. Tell me about this. So it's handling the information or misinformation.
So do you try to answer everything that comes in?
Yes, we do.
Wow. What type of what's the number of inquiries?
It's massive, and it rises and falls throughout the election. And we use our media partners from in the Colorado Springs, El Paso area. Our radio, our print, our TV media is always very good about reaching out to us regularly throughout the election to get the most accurate information. And when they hear these things that might be a concern to a citizen, we're using those platforms also to communicate out to
That's
our
interesting.
citizens.
It's like a whole new, social media has produced a whole new line that you have to worry about, where it used to be just put an article out every week or so in the press, right?
So the social media is used as a mechanism to get accurate information, but at the same time it can be a vehicle for putting out misinformation.
Wow. And there's no way to say, what is misinformation other than you guys running it down? It's hard to put a finger on that. Could be just anybody saying stuff, right?
It is, and we have emails that we have of folks. We use the various mediums to communicate to folks. So we do the best we can, and I think we've largely been
Seems like this
pretty
could
effective.
be a new area for to be concerned about a denial of service attack, where somebody just starts flooding so much information that you can't handle it.
And those are some of the things that we practice in this cybersecurity event called EPIC. Is these various attacks. We have simulated phishing attacks and malware. So we regularly are probing and with people in white hats to safeguard this, so that we're always at the best that we are, and we're working with our partner agencies to identify any holes, any gaps, and to close them down and rectify it. But it's you can't rest on your laurels. You got to keep on working, right?
Yeah. So now, if we looked at the day of the process of going through the election, walk us through what things that you're doing. T minus 24 hours, T minus 12, all the way through the process.
Sure. In Colorado, we can vote up to 21 days beforehand. But let's say we take election day. So we have ballots that have been sent to people, and they return them. They either return them by the mail, and we have the barcodes on them so we can track that they're coming back. We have our drop boxes that citizens are dropping off those ballots, and all our ballot boxes are 24/7. So there's a camera on them. They're well lit. We have runners, teams of people that are going out there several times a day to get those ballots. They're, when the ballot box is emptied, or when we go to the Postal Service and get those ballots boxed, we're putting them in a container where the containers are sealed. There's 2 people for each of the 2 major political parties there, and we have a chain of command that we demonstrated that Joe and Mike picked up these ballots. This is what they picked up. This is the seal that was on that
There's
physical.
like a barcode and a reader, step by step.
And they come back into our office, and then we break that seal, and
So
we
is there like GPS on the container?
No, not yet. But
okay.
that's going to be coming one day here soon. But those ballots come back, and the seal is broken, and we've had that chain of custody, and then through every step of the way in our internal processes, we're keeping track of every ballot. So if 100 ballots went into the signature verification step, that step where we're verifying that is your signature and nobody else's, if 100 ballots went in through that processing station, 100 got to come out. We verify that signature, then we're removing that ballot from that ballot envelope with a secrecy sleeve, and that ballot is removed, and it's a 3-step process. So whoever took the ballot out of the envelope doesn't know the name of the person that was on the outside of the envelope, so it protects and makes
and that's where you did the signature verification.
Yeah. So
gotcha.
so we believe in your ballot is secret, is sacred. No one should know your vote other than yourself. And then that ballot from that step goes into our tabulation. There again, we're checking the chain of custody that 100 ballots went in, 100 went out. So every step of the way, we have the physical security, and then with the tabulation, it's in a controlled access room under 24/7 with representatives from both parties, observers watching that, and they're watching the tabulation process. And if 100 ballots went into that machine, 100's got to come out. And then at periodic times in the evening, we sneaker net it. We take that encrypted thumb drive and bring it outside the room to display, and then that thumb drive is destroyed and never used again. And then that goes to the Secretary of State's database that has 2-factor authentication, and they display the results. And then after the election, we have what's called a post audit. It's called a risk limiting audit. So we tested these machines at the beginning of the process that they tabulated correctly. And then in Colorado, we have the most sophisticated audit technique in the country. A group of engineers and scientists from MIT and Cal State Berkeley that has put together a mechanism for us to randomly audit and compare the digital image of what the ballot was with the actual physical portion of that ballot, and verifying that ballot was read correctly and displayed. How
many of those you do? A spot check on one?
Well, it depends on a couple factors. It's the number of ballots cast in the race, and whether the race was close or not. So a race that had a very narrow margin, we're going to sample a higher number because we need to sample a larger number to make sure that we are accurate. If there was a race where it was separated, 66% to 33%, you have a smaller sample size that you have to sample. It's one of the very narrow races where you may have hundreds or thousands of ballots that you got to sample to indicate whether or not you obtained the true results.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Statistically, there's a name for that. Statistical proof that you're accurate or whatever. Interesting. So that kind of, auditing, how does my vote, does it count?
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of walked us through that whole process. What do you see the future looking like? What is it driving towards? Will we become more digital? Does blockchain do this for us? What are we looking for?
Well, I think the watershed event was the 2016 election, and the belief, incorrectly, that a outside foreign entity interfered with our elections. I'm extremely confident to say here in El Paso County and Colorado and the United States that did not happen. We have every state has different platforms that they operate. So for any actor to try and penetrate and try to change the results is kind of fruitless because we're on so many different ways that we do our process. So there's no one way that any entity could ever affect. We're 64 counties in Colorado, but we're 3,000 or 4,000 counties throughout the United States, and they each do it a little differently. So because we do things a little differently, it's hard to really attack us in a concerted way. But the results that on election night in 2016, I believe that they are accurate. Before that 2016 election, there was talk about using more electronic mechanisms to vote. Being able to vote via, a smart app on your phone or on your tablet. And there was a lot of energy to do that. But since then, I think a lot of people have taken a step back and said, "Wait, maybe we're not want to go in that bold area yet."
There's some political questions that need to be answered before we go that.
Well, and I think there's technologies, blockchain, and others that might have an answer. So the technology might run a little farther ahead of what the political powers to be maybe have an appetite for that. So I think that remains to be seen what's going to happen. But I think you're going to see more and more ways of making sure we are secure from a cyber side, that we're more secure, more mechanisms to make sure that we're secure from the physical side. And I think what we've learned in some of these mock exercises, that a key component, just as strong as the physical and cybersecurity side, is making sure our citizens have accurate information, that they're confident that their vote is being tallied right.
This was definitely an awakening. Is there anything that you would like to put out to people to help with or support with on the next timing election, or just in general for your office?
I think in general, Colorado enjoys one of the highest rates by which adults are registered to vote and participate. Nearly 90%, nearly 9 out of 10 citizens in Colorado are registered to vote. We're always trying to increase that and make that better. 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 participate in a presidential election, but our local elections, whether it's for the mayor or for your school district, are just important, maybe more so than maybe some of the national races. So encourage people to participate, feel confident that their vote is secured and that it will accurately reflect their wish. So, register to vote. When you move, make sure you update that. And when you have questions, check with us.
Yeah, how would they do that?
They can either contact our office at epcvotes.com. We have information, FAQs for that, or people can call 719-575-VOTE. That's 719-575-VOTE. You can also go to our website, El Paso County Clerk and Recorder's Office, click on the link, and you can reach out to our PIO, Christy Riddlin, or myself, our election manager, by email. Or by calling us.
All right. Well, thanks for that, and that gives us a place to check and somebody to rely on here.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and I hope we can discuss again maybe when it comes closer to the election.
Definitely. But this has definitely been something that we can use repeatedly for people that want to know what this process looks like.
Sure.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me.
The views or opinions expressed during this podcast are not those of Colorado Technical University.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of New Cyber Frontier. Remember to get involved. Often we think that someone else will handle privacy and security in the virtual world, but you are the only one truly in command of your virtual fate. Join our mailing list so we can keep you informed of breaking news and new releases. If you have an idea, if you have a question that you would like to hear answered, or if you want to get involved with our efforts, reach out to us at newcyberfrontier.com. We also encourage you to visit our sponsors' links, as they are the ones that really make this show possible. I want to thank each of you for supporting the show, and we look forward to seeing you back for the next episode of New Cyber Frontier.